Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Activities for People Living at Home with Dementia. We are proud to offer this series with funding from the Area Agency on Aging and the United Way of Tarrant County. These programs are recorded and are made available for viewing through a YouTube channel for future use. I am your host for today's activities. Our topic today is brought to you by Peggy Spear with the Amon Carter Museum of American Art. And we're talking today about hats.
Everyone looks absolutely fabulous. I love it.
Artful.
The bird is tapping on my hat. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
That might become irritating.
There you go. It could be, but he won't last for long. Peggy, take it away.
All right, sister. Let me get it big. All right, can everyone see?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
All right, well, let's jump on into it. Our first image here is by our good old friend, Charlie Russell. So let's talk about what we see.
Cowboy. A cowboy.
Cowboy. And the title gives it
Cowboy
away.
hat.
And a cowboy hat. Yes, Paulette and Phil, and we've got.
I think it looks like somebody who wants to get lung cancer because he's going to make a cigarette.
Yeah.
He is, in fact, making a cigarette. And he is, in fact, wearing a cowboy
Yeah,
hat.
making a cigarette. That's what it says.
And so what else do we see? So he's got in his hand, it looks like he's rolling the cigarette. He's got his hat on. What else do we notice that he's wearing?
He's got his rope ready to
Oh,
He
like,
has
Chaps.
Yeah, and he
Gun
has
belt?
a
Revolver.
belt with a revolver,
his gun.
Spurs.
lasso.
Spurs.
You see like a
He's got his
Yeah.
bandana.
you notice what is on his feet?
Spurs.
Spurs.
he's got
Spurs.
spurs that jingle,
Spurs, yeah.
jangle.
Yep, exactly.
Jangle.
Mhm.
And then
Where's that
this right
jingle?
here is Charlie Russell's signature.
Oh, yeah.
He would most of the time, not always, but typically would add his little cow skull.
Skull.
Yeah.
Kind of like his how sometimes Japanese print artists would have a stamp to sign their signature. That was kind of his stamp on his works on paper. So this is we're used to seeing, at least on the walls here at the Amon Carter, and we've looked at some in the past on paintings. We're used to seeing his paintings, but he was a really, really, really good draftsman, really good at drawing. And so we have so many of his sketches of ink on paper, and you kind of get, or what do you notice about the artist's hand in this? Does it look like he spent a lot of time on this? Does it look like he worked quickly? Does it look like he was using a thick nib or a skinny one?
It looked like he was did this kind of quickly
And what makes you say that?
because all the lines are kind of scribbled on his clothes. The outline looks good.
Yeah.
But it's still very detailed, you know.
It is very detailed, yeah.
His belt has a lot of
Lines go the
details.
same- Lines go the same direction.
Almost like a photograph.
Photograph, yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, the black and white contributes to that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can really, you guys were able to point out so many features about this particular man. You can even see down to the pockets on his chaps.
Oh, that's true. Maybe it wasn't so quickly.
Well, he was a quick draftsman, and he was so good at drawing that he could have done it quickly. And he knew how to point out the details he wanted to point out. He wouldn't get kind of caught up. And he taught himself. He didn't come out of the gate as good of a draftsman as he became to be. He got better and better over time. And our our conservator has done a lot of work on Charlie Russell's watercolors. So he was a better draftsman than he was painter. And the painting came to him over time.
Is he rolling a cigarette there?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
But so his hat, looking back at the hat, because that's what we're all here for today. This is, we have a archivist on staff who's a big hat buff. And so he was kind of walking me through this hat. This is a surplus 1876 hat, campaign hat, and the way it's gathered at the crown, so up here, it's called the Montana Peak style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so Charlie Russell was an actual cowboy. So he was very intimately aware of fashion and function of this, the cowboys, because he himself often wore these things or was working with people who had these on all the time. And so the Montana Peak, he lived in Montana. So he was familiar with this
So
style.
Peggy,
Yeah.
this may be off subject a little bit, but I've read the book, The Virginian, and I've watched the TV show, The Virginian. This does not look like The Virginian.
I don't know enough, so you probably are telling us more.
Okay, well, it looks like he's from Montana for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
would
that makes
trust
sense within Russell's background, but Remington also did a series of work related to the Virginian, I believe, as well. So I think our artistic liberty might have taken precedence here. And this particular hat style is actually the hat style that you still might see with highway patrol, police patrol.
Yeah.
The Royal Canadian Mounted Police use the same hat style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the crown were a little taller, it would look like Pharrell Williams's hat from Happy.
Yes. Oh man, he's so cool.
Well, that's kind of a, this painting was well before Pharrell was wearing it. So I imagine it might be backwards comparison.
Yes.
Oh man, my mom and dad actually liked Pharrell growing. Like I remember listening to NERD in their car. It's really funny. Okay, so we've got this hat was mostly for function. Of course, there was style to it. You know how different people would bend their hats that added a little personal flair to what they wore. But a cowboy, this is a standard hat that we still see today. So now we're going to say goodbye to our friend rolling a cigarette. We're going to move to this.
Ooh.
Oh
This
my.
very stern looking man. So
Don't
what
wanna
is
meet him in the dark alley.
here?
Hand tramp.
Well, it's a military officer.
Yes.
Another
Of a,
Virginian.
And I heard someone say from Virginia. Yes.
it's an officer because he's got the shoulder board
Good eye.
and the sword. The enlisted usually did not have swords.
Yes.
Yeah.
And his title, Colonel, is noted
Right.
in the title of the artwork.
What's the emblem on his hat?
Well, thank you for asking, Yetta. His hat it's a silver bugle cap badge.
It is a bugle.
And so it's silver, but the way we're seeing it is the reverse because this is a daguerreotype. And so daguerreotypes are on mirrors. And so often when you view a daguerreotype, you have something under your chin to quiet all of the noise to make it look like it's on a black background. So whenever we put daguerreotypes out in the galleries, we have these boards. You can see because the mirror is reflecting in the back.
Oh.
So his hat it's a have it written down, a silver bugle cap badge type used by state militias, and in this case, like Martha said, it's Virginia. And so this probably would not have been worn in battle. This hat would have been helping, like Steve pointed out, all the other things he's wearing that help identify his rank. This hat would have helped identify his rank as well.
Yeah.
And so this particular photograph came to us in a group of about 50 other photographs, 50 other daguerreotypes, and they're mostly from, not all, but a lot were from the U.S.-Mexican War. So we don't know a lot about him. We don't know who even took the photograph, but we know that based on the other images, I think Polk might have been in this, a photograph of Polk was in this series that came to the museum.
And the aide of it.
And the what?
Age,
Yeah,
the date.
yeah. And so it says with applied color, his eyes look kind of haunting.
Mhm.
Maybe that's to me, they look very piercing. That often with daguerreotype, you could go in and add some coloring to it, hand
Okay.
color. And this is very tiny. This is only about 3 inches by 2 inches.
Ooh,
Oh,
Hmm.
that's impressive with the detail.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the way that it would be printed or agitated and everything allows for this very crisp detail. But then often daguerreotypes were kept in containers that almost folded like a business card book, so you could open them up and prop it on your dresser, or then they wouldn't, because they were so fragile, they needed a bit of protection.
So Peggy,
Yeah.
was this a 1/8 by 10? He got 20 wallet size?
Yeah, he sent
Well,
it to the school, and then they gave him the option of the laser background or the blank background, and he went with the blank background. That's cute. And you can see thumbprints, or from people touching the development.
Fingerprints.
But what do you think about this portrait?
it looks very serious.
Very serious.
Mhm.
Ceremonial more than working man, as someone said. He wouldn't have worn this into battle.
Oh, I'm not sure about that.
No, I think they would have.
Yeah.
Officers wore these in battle.
Yes, this identified him as an officer.
Yeah.
See, I
And
didn't know.
the date is actually the middle of the Mexican-American
Yes.
War,
Yes.
very middle.
Oh, thank you, gentlemen.
Wow, Steve, you are so smart, dude.
He was
Well,
probably Go ahead, Steve.
Google did well with that.
So I think
Okay.
the
So did you see?
American-Mexican War was headed up by Andrew Jackson,
Yes.
and he took the battle from the U.S.-Texas border all the way down
Mhm.
into Mexico City.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
And
Oh, go ahead.
and we did not have a standing army at that time,
That's right.
so we used a lot of volunteer groups like Virginia,
Yeah.
another place. Even during the Civil War, most of the groups were volunteer groups
Yeah.
Exactly right.
from states.
So in this particular, in the 50 photographs that we received, there's some colonels from Maine that ended up in this series. A lot of the photographs are from the American side of the U.S.-Mexican War, but there were some pictures in what we received, and we don't think it was the full collection of what these dags
Right.
were.
Yeah.
But there were some or mostly American scenes.
Mm.
So that would suggest it was probably an American photographer versus a Mexican one.
He has a sash on, and that usually was a specific color denoting his regiment or detachment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like why he didn't paint that particular color. Because you feel a portrait of a military officer, that would mean a lot.
Yeah.
But these two, he looks very serious. Don pointed out this was very early on in photography. The sitter would have to stay very, very still. And so holding a smile, think of like when it starts to fade. So often, and granted his position, his role of work would dictate a more serious face. But there were armatures and things like that where you could sit in it and you wouldn't see the arms, but it would prop your arm a certain way.
Right. Hold your neck up and things like that. I think they did some.
So this, you can kind of see something behind his arm right here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be he's sitting on the edge of a chair. We don't know, but those devices existed to help steady the sitter's pose.
Mhm.
So, Peggy, ask another question, please. The brim of his hat looks shiny like his buttons. Made out of some sort of metal or something?
Yeah, I don't know enough about the specific make of the hat, but I would guess it could be even a fabric with a patina to it, maybe like
Yeah.
leather
Yeah.
or
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. That
He used
current
to have-
hats. I didn't bring mine out. I should have brought mine out to wear, but it's the same thing. It's a shiny brim, but it's not metal. It's a either a cloth or these days it's a plastic
Yeah.
Okay,
covering.
okay,
It's almost like a patent leather.
okay, okay.
Ours were leather and we had to polish them with shoe
Right,
polish.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you,
And
Phil.
That
These
sounds-
days, it's not as much, but those buttons, they basically actually even had little devices to put them around them to separate the cloth from the buttons so they could
Yeah.
polish the buttons
Yeah.
Cool.
without causing a problem with the cloth.
Yeah. All right,
So
so we're leaving the military. This was a hat, kind of a function, not necessarily fashion. We're gonna say hello to Benjamin Franklin.
Hello, Benjamin.
It's like cold dark.
All right. So this hat is like as American as apple pie. What is the name of this type of hat?
It's a tricorn.
Trifold.
But it was not called a tricorn when it was in fashion. It was actually called a cocked hat when it was in
A
fashion.
what?
A cocked hat. And it wasn't until the mid 1800s that they started calling this style of hat a tricorn.
Okay.
And so this hat, I grew up in Maryland, and we always went down to Colonial Williamsburg for vacation. I love it. Anyway, they always had the tricorn hats on, and so this hat was very fashionable during the colonial time, and the Revolutionary War. Forgetting my wars, and it would be worn by the aristocracy as much as it was worn by the common man. This hat was everywhere in men's fashion. And so it was made of, does anyone know what it's made out of?
Leather.
Not leather.
Felt?
Felt. Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
Phil.
A wool felt. And so a heavier wool in the winter and a lighter wool in the summer. Can you guess maybe what time of year this?
It's like fallish.
Fall. Why do you say that?
Because there's
You
leaves
gotta
on the ground.
Have your
color.
coat on.
The color of the leaves.
Yes, the color, the leaves on the ground, and he has a coat on. Man, you guys, nothing gets by you.
And he's
It was-
eating an apple.
And he's actually
is
eating
eating
a
an apple.
roll, but it does look like an apple. You can
Oh.
see he has a loaf or a roll under.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he has.
I think it looks like bread.
Yeah, bread. Well, in his autobiography, Benjamin's autobiography, he identifies them as rolls. And so I'm going to read the exact excerpt from his autobiography that Wyeth was capturing. I cannot read my handwriting, so I'm ad-libbing. Having no room in pocket, walked off with a roll underneath each arm and eating the other. I went up Market Street as far as Fourth, passing by the door of Mr. Reed, my future wife's father, and she was standing at the door and saw me. So it's titled The Arrival in Philadelphia. This is depicting the day he arrived in Philadelphia, which we knew was in October. So you were right, it was fall. And we know historians have been able to really narrow it down to October 6th,
Okay.
1723.
We know who the lady is now too.
Yes.
Is his future wife. According to that, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
according to his excerpt. So,
Yeah.
and he came down from Massachusetts, and he looks as any other civilian would have looked. He's not in any military garb or anything like that. And so the tricorn hat too, he doesn't look like he's wearing a wig in this picture, in this painting,
Mhm.
but the way that the hat pinched would allow men to show off their new wigs. So you could see it was pulled in enough. You could see the fashion of their hair, which was really important. It was also, so when they originally, this came from a Spanish and French design that made its way to the US. When men would stand with their musket or bayonet, it could stand and not hit the
Oh,
side
yeah.
of their hat
Yeah.
because it was pinched. And then the etiquette of the day is you would take your hat off the second you walked indoors. And so that
Right.
those crooks in the hat allow it to go under the crook in your arm.
Oh, okay.
So it was fashion and function. And here it's very plain. There's nothing on his hat, which would make sense. He's traveling, he's just trying to get where he's going. But people would use these hats, men would use these hats to often align with political affiliation or for a special celebration. They had things called cockades, and it was almost kind of like a boutonniere for your hat, so to speak. And certain colors would align you with certain political movements, parties, whatever. And
Like
so
a
here, say that again.
Like a do-rag does today for
Yeah.
the crypt.
Yeah,
and the
I've
blood.
seen pictures of French that have different, those emblems on their hats.
Yeah. And sometimes they were very simple. It could just be like a little black circle, ruffled circle with a silver pin in the middle, just to add a little zhuzh to their outfit.
Yeah.
And can you see what's right here on the stair? The
It's a
steps?
boot scraper.
Boot scraper, boot scraper.
Do any of you have those at your house now?
Not
No.
now.
We used to.
Used to.
Used
They were
to.
at my junior high,
Oh, were they really?
but they weren't that fancy. They were concrete and about 3 feet long
Yeah.
for lots of kids.
Any place that was from the country always had them.
Oh,
Because
really?
everybody's,
Yeah.
country, or like growing up in North Dakota, they had them because the kids came in from the farms. So they'd always scrape their boots, before they came into the classroom.
Yeah.
So
Well, what-
Peggy,
Oh, go ahead.
would you say that he's wearing some kind of stockings?
Yeah, those would be like a petticoat.
Okay, so if you look at his right foot, his stocking has a hole in it at the heel.
Oh, look at
Oh,
that.
yeah, very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good-
And it
good
also
eye.
looks like the left
A
leg
very good
has
eye.
the hole.
Yeah,
Up closer to the knee, there's a hole in the sock.
right
Yeah.
here.
For sure.
there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that goes along with, it looks like he has a hobo stick he's carrying in his hand.
Hey, it wasn't easy coming from
Possessions.
Massachusetts down to Philly that time of our history.
Mm-mm.
A little
No.
worse for
They
the
didn't
wear.
they didn't have black garbage bags back in that day.
Yeah, really.
Well, he's on his way to church. He's got his holy socks on.
It's never easy living in Massachusetts. let me tell you.
So anyway, this painting is on. I've been here for almost 8 years now, and I've never actually seen this painting on view.
Mm.
So I guess right before I started working here, it had recently been on view, and people love this painting. But I'm not. My hunch is that there's some conservation concerns as to why we're not putting it up, but I'm not 100% sure. So while almost all of our oil on canvases are on view in the museum, this one is actually not. So you would not find it if you tried looking.
Do you know how big it is?
Let me see. You know what? I didn't write those dimensions
Okay.
down. It's pretty large. I would say about
Pretty large? Okay.
6 feet high. Yeah, it's not like a small one.
Okay.
Oh, good.
And it's
Peggy and everybody, thank you so much. I've got to jump off
Bye,
All right.
Steve.
to another
See you later,
meeting,
Steve.
but we will
Bye.
see you folks
Steve.
tomorrow.
It's 11 o'clock. Can I drop off?
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.
56.
We've got another one coming at us.
Oh,
Ooh.
Portrait of Mrs. R. So last week, we saw a portrait by Bellows of an older woman, and she had the lace neckline and sleeves, holding a cane. This is another one of the portraits he was painting during that same time up in New York. What do we see?
A woman.
A woman.
I think she's is it a fur she's wearing? I think she's well off.
I agree.
Long coat. Yes.
And what makes you say it's a fur, Yetta?
It just looks over the shoulders and just the way, the thickness, the way it's falling.
Yeah. And look at the detailing on her sleeve.
Yeah.
Oh, true.
it's so detailed. It looks like a photograph.
Yes, he was very good draftsman. He was very good. And he did multiple studies leading up to this lithograph. And so this is, again, the lithograph is done on a stone, and he's drawing it onto a stone, and then he's putting ink on it, and then there's a different printer would run the stone and the paper to transpose the image. So it looks very much by hand for an actual printing process.
Yeah.
All right, so we pointed out what looks like with the shawl neckline and the fur on the sleeve. What else do we notice about her?
I can't tell what kind of hat she has on. I don't know what that hat's called.
A cloche.
A cloche.
A cloche?
Did anyone wear cloches in any of their fashion?
No.
Looks like it's out of the roaring 20s.
Morning, Dusty.
Yes, this was done in the 20s, so yes, it was very much in vogue at that time. And this hat was in style for a while, but this day and age, you never see anybody wearing a cloche. And
So what is it made out of, Peggy?
Typically felt, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And it kind of looks like her hair. It's not. It fits all the way on like a bell, kind of like when I'm
right.
Okay.
Cap. And it was very tight, along with a little flare, but tight along the whole crown of the head.
Now this is a cloche with ears.
I wonder what Bellows would have thought if you sat down for your portrait with your little cat ears. We would have learned a lot about Martha if that was your hat and you chose to wear it.
That's right.
Yes.
What else makes you
My mother used to be a hat model.
You did, Paula?
Yeah, she was a hat model.
Oh, very cool. Do you have like a little witch's hat on? Have I not noticed this until now?
She what?
Or Paulette, are you wearing like a little witch hat?
Yes.
I see it now. Yeah.
That Halloween baby.
Yes.
I wasn't born on Halloween for no reason.
I wouldn't expect any other hat on you except that.
No. Nancy, were you going to say something?
No.
No? Okay.
Yeah, please cut me off.
No,
I'm
she's
talking.
I don't know if she can hear you.
All right, so what else? Yetta said that it seems that she's coming from a very higher socioeconomic situation, wealthier life. What else would indicate her life?
She's wearing gloves.
And she's wearing jewelry.
Yeah, pearls or something.
Mm-hmm.
A chain.
Yeah, probably pearls. I think you were right, Myra.
And she's holding a handkerchief, a silk handkerchief.
Christine Doshi.
I think, yeah, it's either a handkerchief or it could be, I can't tell if she has one glove she's holding in her hand or if it's a handkerchief.
Okay.
But yes, she's holding something that is not, it's more of an accessory versus essential. And in other iterations of her portraiture, the chair this looks like a very simple chair. In other ones, she's sitting in larger armchairs that have, look like it could be, or that Louis the 16th, that circle, with the upholstery and then the hardwood along the outside. So, again, the furniture kind of indicated her higher status in society. And so this particular Mrs. R, who's Mrs. R, they identify her by her husband as is it Mrs. Walter Riker, and her husband was a collector of Bellows lithographs. So he did a.
What was her last name again, please?
Riker, Richter.
Okay.
So this was I couldn't find if it was commissioned by Walter or a thank you to Walter from Bellows, as he bought a lot of his artwork prior. So all right, we got one more. We'll kind of whip through it. This sweet little hubby.
Oh.
Cotton.
So what do we see? What's happening here?
It's picking cotton.
Oh, cotton.
Cotton.
Back home.
Yeah.
Picking cotton. What does he have on his head?
A big floppy hat.
Any guess on what this hat was made out of?
Straw?
Straw.
I have to ask this little girl from Lubbock to explain all of that.
Yeah, my husband's from Lubbock. Big cotton.
Yeah, I used to live in Lubbock. I
Did
lived
you
in
live near a
Lubbock.
cotton farm? Did you ever pick cotton?
What?
Did you
No,
ever
I,
pick cotton?
no, but we drove by a bunch of them old cotton fields
No.
up high. Lubbock is got an elevation of like 3,500 feet. So you just don't think of that when you're up in Lubbock.
No. Mm-mm.
I picked a Nicholsworth once.
And what did you do with it?
It was on my grandmother's farm. And
Cool.
I told my uncle, who was leading the pickers at the time, that looked like fun. And he, here's a sack, honey. You go pick it and I'll pay you the going rate. And I picked a Nicholsworth. I got tired.
And how much was that in volume?
Probably not much for a 7-year-old.
Well,
I'd say maybe a loaf of bread. I don't remember.
well,
So hey, Martha, where did you grow up?
That was in Southeast Missouri.
Southeast
Okay.
Missouri.
well, this little boy was probably younger than 7 and didn't have a voice. And this was, we've looked at Louis Wick Hines' photograph before of a little boy, 2 little boys working at a wood saw. They were milling wood.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So this is the same photographer who is really collecting images to show how awful working conditions were. And so this sweet little boy had no choice but to pick cotton. This was his job. And so he's got his little straw hat on, which just think of how sunburned his poor little skin would have been.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so these were used to present to the government as an argument for we cannot send our children this young to work.
So Peggy, does this look a little bit staged? Because there's no other pickers around him.
You know what? I don't know. In this series of pictures, there are sometimes other little boys all clustered together, other kids clustered together. He would definitely not have been working that land alone.
Yeah, really.
Poor kid if he is, geez. But in this particular photograph, this little boy is the only subject.
Okay.
Dawn, if
Yeah.
you look in the distance, kind of behind and to the left of him,
Yeah.
there's a white spot and then a taller dark spot. No, the other
Right
side.
here.
Okay.
No, a little closer to right in there. There's 2 things that look like it could be figures of.
What could be?
Could be bent over figures. You're right.
I think they're actually cropped in this particular photograph. But there are images like what Gail is saying where you can see other pickers in the background. This particular boy, I feel like he photographed a lot of different pictures of him. He was of interest to Hines. So it wouldn't be surprising if there were that he has just a picture of one boy.
Well, the rows were nice and straight. I'll say that.
I mean, that bag is bigger than he is. It just
That's it. Yeah.
So anyway, it's a straw hat, and the tighter the weave, the more expensive the hat would have been. So this looks like it actually is a pretty nice hat given probably the poverty he was living in. But if that's what's protecting you from getting a sunburn or from that's completely destroying your face all the time and not seeing what you can do or being able to see, I'm sure they spent good money on protecting themselves. All right, well, those are our hats.
Okay.
You
Love
guys
it.
are a fun bunch as always.
That's
And I have no idea what I'm doing for you guys next week. I have it, but I don't remember off the top of my head. So
How about if we just advertise it as Peggy's surprise?
I love it.
We'll love it no matter what, Peggy.
Oh,
Of course
yeah.
we will.
Thanks for sticking with me, guys. Yeah, I can't remember what, I think it might be, I'm not even going to say because I don't know. But yeah, I've got a theme picked out and we will enjoy it. And I'll see y'all next week.
All right, see you next week, Peggy. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Be good.
You do a super job.
Oh, thanks,
Super
Paula.
job.
Thank you, Miss Peggy.
Yay, round of applause.
I love her hat.
I do too.
Yes. And tomorrow we have Dave Parks, the owner of Home Care Assistance, to bring Mind Fit, which is going to tickle our neurons and make us think in a fun way.